So when you're ready. Yeah, well basically what today is all about is the centenary really of the first tanks that were built in Lincoln, probably using plates from the steelworks at Scunthorpe, and basically at the Battle of Ypres, which commenced on the 31st of July. It was the first time that tanks actually took on board wireless systems. Originally before then the only way a tank could communicate was by sending two carrier pigeons out of small plate holes on the side of the tank back to headquarters. 6 Mark I tanks were actually converted with 30-foot masts on the top of the tank to carry a wireless system. The wireless systems consisted of spark transmitters and also crystal sets as regards receivers, and communicated back to headquarters. So that's all commenced on the 31st of July, and that was the reason really for today, is to celebrate that happening as regards the first tanks in the world to carry wireless. Okay. What we have here on display at present is, just in case we do forget, there's quite a few radio amateurs involved in key positions as regards the use of wireless in the First World War, such as a gentleman here was involved with communications from airships that were patrolling the shipping channels of the East Coast, protecting convoy ships, merchant ships from German U-boats. And evidently no ships were lost whilst the airships were patrolling against the U-boats, because of course being overhead they could see oil seepages from the U-boats, they could see when the periscopes were coming up, they could see when it was on the surface, and of course an airship can travel very, very slow when he spotted one of these U-boats in the area. Okay. Moving on a little bit, this is some of the old telegraph equipment that was used, which the Morse key is what a double current key, where we can actually switch from send to receive, of course, which made it far more efficient against back EMFs. So sending and receiving would actually change the polarity of the battery, so it made it quicker as regards back EMFs on the senders.
And this is some of the equipment you've collected over the years and put together yourself?
Recently, yeah. This was all made in 1914, 1916. It's all got the arrows on.
The crow's foot.
The thing, and you'll see here on the galvanometer, it's actually got the date 1916 on it.
Alright.
So the old galvanometer and switchgear. Some of the other bits and pieces, what we call the single current key, and the senders on it, which is just straight down key. And this one is actually a little practice key from 1903. There's no electrical connections on it. It's purely there, of course, so people know what the actual clicks mean.
Alright, so it's not connected to anything, it's just click away and hope for the best.
What I do have actually is an amplifier that you can plug into your audio systems on your present equipment, where you're getting your audio signal through. It'll actually convert that into clicks. When I've actually brought it to the club and played it to some of the senior members who are good at Morse, very few of them can actually tell what sort of clicks are coming through on the sounder.
Really?
Because these guys who were operating this sort of equipment, 30 words a minute on it.
Wow.
And this is the sort of stuff that was still extensively used in the United States on their railway systems up to the 1970s.
Really?
Yeah, still working on telegraph systems such as that.
Awesome.
Across here we have an War Department resistance bridge from 1916.
Just get a quick zoom in on that.
And that was actually used for checking out cabling systems with a galvanometer, which is the same from the era. Again, it's old leather case. And it was also used these for checking out some gunfire systems as well.
I bet these are few and far between. I bet there's not many of these about, is there?
There's a few of these about, but I don't think there's many of the galvanometers about. Again, different sorts of resistance bridges and that sort of thing, bits and pieces of crap that I've picked up, and an old fashioned switch system. They could connect probably two circuits together, but switching around the different systems of 4 positions of doing it.
Awesome. Never seen anything like that before.
No. This one really, what we come here is what started me off in about 8 years ago. Poor father died. Just before he died, he gave me his war medals from the Second World War, and he said, "Hey, you better have your great uncles." And great uncle won the DCM, and when I started exploring into it, the Distinguished Conduct Medal is next to the Victoria Cross, it was in those days.
Right.
And managed to research into it, and what he was actually involved with was with a captain in the Third Battle of Ypres, and they were actually walking tanks into position, leading the tanks into position under heavy gunfire, and unfortunately the captain got killed. My uncle actually lived to tell the tale, and we were asked to go to a ceremony where they were building the first tank memorial to the Third Ypres battle in about 2010.
Yeah.
And I was actually introduced to the great nephew of Captain Robertson, and him and I were asked to walk down to this bridge where his great uncle was killed. He was awarded the Victoria Cross, which is the original as we see there, and that's in my hand is my great uncle's DCM, and that was the first time those two medals have been together in 98 years since the lads were killed. That was 2 years ago.
I mean, these are gained from courage that you very rarely see nowadays, don't you think?
Yeah. Well, what happened when it came back from that? I spoke to one of my distant relatives up in West Hartlepool, and his father, which of course was one of the other great uncles, just said, "I've got an old book here with a letter in it," and he says, "I'll send it down to you since you got the medals." And when I actually got the book and opened it up, this old handwritten letter was what our fellow had actually written to his captain's mother to tell her how he'd been killed and how he found him in a shell hole with a machine gun bullet through his head, and he nursed him till he died. And it was in our fellow's possessions because he got killed 6 weeks later before he could post it. And it had been so they was assumed up to that particular time that he died on his own, which he hadn't. So that was really things that we've done for that. The reason that we've got this actual plaque is because a year last April we'd had this mounted on the wall of a restaurant opposite Polygon Wood, and the British ambassador, friend David Leckie, who was the actual black rod to the Queen in Parliament, he's our president, and this was a group of people who have actually assembled it overlooking Polygon Wood where the lads were in action, so we have a memorial about that.
Lovely.
Exploring more into that, I've actually written a book on it.
Now then, John, I have been telling people on Facebook about the book that you've written, so this is
Life
good.
and Times of a Tankie. And in there, part of my research took into it about communications as well. And of course, talk about the wireless tank. So, which, again, I think the information we've got on that, I think we've got more information than Bovington Tank Museum on it now.
Brilliant.
And the sort of equipment that was used.
Now then,
in
would you like to tell the viewers how they can purchase this book? Because I think it's only fair.
Well, if you want to get in touch with John Allen
Where are we? Let me see. Is there a...
No, there isn't.
There isn't one on there. No. So, say again.
John Allen 33 at virgin.net.
Yeah.
We can send you one through the post.
Excellent. Yeah. Awesome. How much are they, John?
£9.
£9.
Plus postage.
Plus
No,
postage.
plus
No, that's
postage,
fair, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, mate. Hopefully, like I say, it's excellent book from John himself.
The tank itself was invented at Lincoln by agricultural engineers, William Foster's, and part of the design to keep it in secrecy was carried out in the White Hart Hotel, which stands at the top of the steeple in Lincoln, near the castle. I believe the room that christened it the Tank Room. And the first Mark 1s were built in Lincoln, and then of course it was spread around other companies like Baden-Mars in Scotland and Wagon Finance Company in Birmingham, and was later developed into the Mark IV. And the Mark IV was a far more efficient tank than the Mark 1. The Mark 1 actually had steering here with two wheels at the rear of it, which was a pain in the butt to operate. So of course we then came to skid steer with the crawler tracks.
Got you.
So that was the ones that were employed. The equipment that was put in the wireless tanks, there's a photograph of a typical wireless tank with its mast up, which of course would be ideal for the Germans taking pot shots at it. It was fixed in the sponsons on the side when they removed the armament. And basically what it consisted of were spark transmitters, such as the Wilson set, and also shortwave tuners, which basically are crystal sets. And they were operated by either Pericon or carborundum crystals. Later on, thermionic valves were then used in the equipment. Also at the same time, what the Germans had in their trenches was spark transmitters, which were similar to what the Allies were using. Quite a lot of these tuners, all the best.
Cheers, Derek.
Quite a lot of these tuners came into the sort of commercial world afterwards and were converted for home use when we started to bring in public broadcasting, which didn't come into Britain until 1922.
Right.
So that's when we started developing the broadcasting system. The technology that was learnt through the First World War, particularly with R-type valves, that first of all were made for the French military and then adopted by the British, R-type valves, which are bright emitter valves, which usually operated around 4 volts, is basically the sort of stuff that we started to use in early reception sets. This reception set I actually found 3 weeks ago, and there was no valves into our reactance unit, which I've had to make, but they actually operated with the R-type valves. And this is a Gegefeld one, which I believe is before the requirement for the BBC and Postmaster General sort of royalty mark that you had to put on them.
Right.
And also you see on the headphones of this crystal set, the BBC royalty, you had to pay 3 shillings royalty for a set of headphones. Yes. And you had to pay 3 shillings for a valve as well, the royalty on a valve. And that went on for about 4 or 5 years. And that was how the BBC originally started up. Different sorts of crystals that we use inside the military sets, the ones that we call Pericon crystal detectors, was where the 2 different crystals were actually rubbed together. The carborundum crystal, which had to be activated with a 1.5 volt cell, again was under pressure of a clamp. But the other ones that we know, such as galena and also the pyrite crystal, is the ones that we operate with a very fine cat's whisker. That one actually has got a galena crystal on it, and by tuning the cat's whisker into it, that's how we got it to demodulate. And again, with this particular set, we've got a tuning condenser on it, as well as a coil. But quite a few of them, crystal sets. Try to get this one to bits. It'll come to bits. Actually use variometers. So that's another one which was quite popular. This particular set, which crystal sets more or less of the day when the valves came out, this one actually uses a variometer as well as a tuning capacitor. We also have on the filaments on it, since we talked about using R-type valves with bright filaments, you could start up at 0 volts and wind it up to 6. Probably if you wound it up to 6 volts, your valves would last for about 100 hours. So running at 4 was more than norm. And normally only the reactance unit has a tune on it, but it was missing on this, so I'd had to make one up with coils on it. But that could be extended its tuning range by plugging another coil into the loading coil unit on the top here. This was the first type of commercial valve type radio that came on the market for receiving broadcast stations. Just one or two other things that we got in the area. This was a tank that was brought to Scunthorpe, Egberts. Quite a lot of tanks were used as tank banks, as they call them, for donations for the war effort, and quite a few were given to different towns and cities after the war. That one's parked up outside Scunthorpe Church for quite a few weeks.
St John's?
That's it, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and that's some people who had photographs taken in front of it. This one was about the bombing raid on Scunthorpe by German airships, the Zeppelins, on the 31st of January 1916. And as you'll see on their casualty list, 3 men killed, 2 men seriously injured, 3 men and 2 women minor injuries. 4 houses were destroyed in Ravendale Street, and also bombs were dropped on Redburn Hills Steel and Iron Works, and also the North Lincoln Iron Works. And on the right hand side here we come back to the airships again that flew over the North Sea protecting the shipping lanes. A lot of them based at Howden, which is on the north side of the River Humber, and here we have the operator's position as regards his wireless equipment, which was in the front cockpit as well as a machine gun.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you very much indeed for that, John. A fantastic bit of history there, and hopefully the viewers will have a lot of enjoyment watching this video. And like I say, guys, don't forget that John's made his own book. If you're interested in getting that, contact him, go back through the video, get the email address, and awesome. Thank you very much indeed, John. John Allen.
Thank you.
Your call sign?
M0 Juliet Alpha Echo.
Okay, 73.
Cheers. Thank you.